Hey guys, welcome into another edition here of College Football Daily, powered by WagerTalk.com. The previews continue, and so does the cast here today as we welcome in Mr. Ralph Michaels, Mr. Tony Mejia, and Mr. Dave Cokin, here to break down three conferences for you guys, the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12. And a quick reminder, of course, packages for the college football season are available right now over at WagerTalk.com. If you visit Ralph Michaels' page, as well as Tony Mejia's page and Dave Cokin's page, always great information up and available there right now. Gentlemen, let's dive in. We'll start with the ACC if we could. And Dave, I'm coming to you first. Talk to me about the ACC here. Is there just simply one team to beat and that's it?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll give you a rundown on each team very quickly in alphabetical order. They're not in order of preference. I just went alphabetical. Boston College offensive line looks really, really good. And Jerkovich is a nice quarterback. This team's going to compete this year. They might not win a lot of games, but they'll be competitive. Clemson, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the nation. The defense is sensational. Everybody knows it. Not much to be said there. Duke is very weak at the skill positions. They're going to be at the bottom of the league. Florida State, I guess it all rides on Mackenzie Milton. We'll see how good he is coming back off a long-term injury. Florida State could be a team on the rise this year, but a lot depends on Milton. Georgia Tech's average every place, and average is not going to get it done in this conference. Louisville, I think they're soft on the defensive front. Teams are going to be able to run on Louisville and keep their offense off the field. That doesn't bode well for the Cardinals. Miami, much stronger in the trenches than they've been. Now, the one worry for Miami is if they take a thumping in the opening week against Alabama, do they get discouraged? If they compete in that game and give the Tide a battle, be a real good sign for Miami moving forward. North Carolina's got a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback in Howell. The defensive line's the question mark. They've got to be able to stop the run and get their offense on the field. Can't give up a lot of third down conversions. North Carolina State's a team I like this year. If Leary steps forward at quarterback and has a big year, they could be a dynamite team. The defense is really good for NC State. I think this team's a live sleeper this year. Pittsburgh's got strength everywhere. There are no weaknesses on the team. The quarterback's going to play more consistently, Pickett. But to me, no excuses for Narduzzi this year. Pittsburgh should be an improved team. Should be very competitive. Virginia's solid everywhere. They'll probably be a middle-of-the-pack team in the ACC, but they're very well coached. Virginia Tech, a little bit of a different look this year. I think the defense is going to be pretty good. I've got questions about the Hokies' offense, though. I skipped by Syracuse in the alphabetical. And no big waste there. They're going to be at the bottom of the conference. And Wake Forest is last on the list alphabetically and toward the last in terms of strength. They'll probably be hanging around in some games. They're good enough offensively to score some points, but they're just not a very good football team. Clemson's the class of the league. I think NC State's the livest sleeper in this league, along with Pittsburgh.
All right, there we go. Lord, we got some sleepers and everything there through the ACC. Ralph Michaels, talk to me there. What can you add?
Well, looking at the power ratings that are available on the Wager Talk College Football Summer Guide, Clemson, I have 96. I have them tied as the number 2 team in the country. I have Clemson tied with Oklahoma, both 4 points behind Alabama. Then it goes North Carolina, Miami of Florida, Dave's hot team, NC State, Wake Forest, and Boston College. 2 teams that I have leaning up. I think both are going to be very solid ATS teams. Then it goes down to Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and Duke at the bottom. From top to bottom in the ACC, I mark Clemson with a 96-point power rating, Duke with a 61.5. So I have a 34.5-point difference top to bottom. Breaking down returning starters, Miami and Wake Forest both with 19, Syracuse and NC State with 18. I do want to preface as I go through starters, remember this. If you have 18 returning starters and they sucked last year, it doesn't all of a sudden mean they're going to be very good this year. And with the super seniors this year, remember, everyone has inflated returning starters. The 2 I want to mention that are bereft of returning starters, Virginia Tech and Duke. Duke only returns 12 starters, and they're one of only 4 teams in the ACC that does not return a quarterback. We're going to talk about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 again. I just want to say this. Your 3 academic schools, Duke, only 12 returning starters, Northwestern, 9, the fewest in college football, and Stanford, only 15, the fewest in the Pac-12. Those schools where kids go to learn and not just play football, those kids did graduate, and they don't have those same number of super seniors. So think about that in all the conferences that are academic schools. Those teams tend to be down a few. Couple things that I do want to bring up. Only 1 new OC in the entire conference. Duke, David Cutcliffe, went with Boyd and Falls. All the coaches are back. Only 1 new DC in the conference. That is Manny Diaz for Miami of Florida. And looking at last year's stats, the number 1 most surprising thing with me, Louisville, they were minus 11 turnovers in ACC play. That team, despite going 3-7, was plus 59 yards per game in conference play. That is much more like a 6-4 team. That was the 30th best number in all of college football.
All right, good stuff there. And Tony Mejia, give my brethren down here in South Florida a reason to be hopeful. D'Eriq King in Miami, over that 9.5 win total. What do you think?
I'm not sure about that, Joe. I think that it does depend, as Dave said, how they come out of that Alabama game. Are they competitive? Miami was a lot better last season. They're physical, but at the same time, D'Eriq King has to do a lot. They lost Bryce Jordan, the tight end. He's no longer there. They do have some weapons. I'm actually looking, beyond Miami, Alabama, and Clemson, Georgia, at North Carolina and Virginia Tech early to give us a little bit of a indication as to what to expect from the Tar Heels, because De'Ami Brown, Daz Newsome, Sam Howell's top targets last season, both gone. Same thing with the backs that were tremendous. And at this point, they picked up Ty Chandler from Tennessee, who is a really good running back. But the skill positions do take a step backwards, and can Howell lift the remaining guys up to avoid an upset at Lane Stadium, which I believe will be full, under Sandman and all the like. So 3 big games in the ACC in Week 1: Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Alabama, and don't sleep on North Carolina and Virginia Tech. Duke loses Chase Bryce to Appalachian State. We'll see how Cutcliffe rebuilds. He's usually a quarterback whisperer, but I believe Bryce had something like 22 turnovers last season, so maybe it was a divorce that'll be good for both sides. I disagree with Dave on Florida State. I fear for my guy Mackenzie Milton, safety, because, they return all these offensive linemen, but they were brutal last year. I mean, that was the biggest issue. They couldn't protect. So unless they really pick it up front, I see another poor season for the Seminoles.
Yeah, doesn't look like it's going to be any good another year there, but that's all right. That's the ACC. Now we'll move on to the Big Ten. And Dave, coming back to you here with the Big Ten here. I'm sure Ohio State's at the top of that list somewhere.
Yeah, I want to leave most of the Big Ten team analysis to Ralph, because that's really his conference. He's just exceptional with his knowledge of the Big Ten. So I'll just do a top-to-bottom rundown, 1 through 14 in the conference. Obviously, Ohio State, my number 1 team in the conference. I don't think it's a blowout. I think Wisconsin has a chance to be the best team in the conference. I think Penn State could be a very strong team. I've got those as the top 3. Number 4 in the conference, I have Iowa, which isn't right in line with the odds. It's going to be a typical Iowa team. They'll find ways to win games. Most of them will be close. They won't blow out a lot of teams. I've got Indiana as the number 5 team in the conference. I've got Michigan as the number 6 team in the conference. And I think the complaints about Harbaugh are going to get even louder this year, because 6th overall in the Big Ten is not what the Big Blue faithful are used to, and I just don't think they're any better than that. Number 7, I've got Minnesota. Number 8, I've got Nebraska. There's already some turmoil there. I mentioned this on WagerTalk today. Just information I've got, that some of the players in Scott Frost are not on the same page. Frost is an old school coach, and the new school players don't really like that type of philosophy. So we'll see what happens there. I think the heat could be turned up as far as the coaching seat goes for Nebraska. Let's see. Number 9, I have Michigan State. I think on paper they could be better than that, but I'm not sure of the coaching on this team. I've got Purdue in the 10th spot. I've got 11th as Maryland. I've got 12th Northwestern. And a cautionary note there. On paper, they stink. Okay, they're a lousy team on paper. Fitzgerald's one of the best coaches in the country. He gets more out of his talent than just about anybody. So I might be way off. My power ratings on Northwestern aren't good. I expect the team to be better than my power ratings. 13th, I've got Illinois, and 14th, I've got Rutgers.
All right, picking up the rear, Rutgers. Ralph, talk to us here. What do you got in the Big Ten this year?
Well, I have to break it out because Dave said it with Northwestern. Only 9 returning starters, the fewest in all of college football. But I put them at 74.5, so I have 5 teams under them. As Dave said, they get a big check mark in coaching and they pick up a couple points in coaching. You look at what these teams have back. My top team, of course, Ohio State, a 93 power rating. I have Wisconsin 97.5, so only 5.5 points behind Ohio State. They've closed the gap from the past. Penn State, Iowa, and Indiana. At the bottom, Michigan State, Maryland, Rutgers, and Illinois. And while, Rutgers has been the bottom feeder in the Big Ten, I really like the progression they made. Schiano can recruit that area. Those kids love him. He's a legend at the school. In the second year, they have 20 starters back. That's most in the Big Ten, tied with Minnesota. You have a lot of teams from the 18 to 15s. I do want to mention the bottom 3 teams. I already mentioned Northwestern with only 9 returning starters, only 4 on offense and no quarterback. Ohio State only returns 12. And a lot of people think, well, Ohio State only returns 12 starters. Well, when you recruit like Ohio and Alabama, I took a look, and of the top 50 players entering college football this year, 24 are at Alabama and Ohio State. Each have 12. That is like you cherry pick who you want. Clemson gets whoever is left, and then USC, Notre Dame, and Texas can pick a few guys. 12 of the top 50 players and the number 1 quarterback, the highest rated quarterback ever in 247 Ewers, hasn't won because he just came in. He gave up his senior year in high school to come into college at only 17 years old. So it'll be very interesting. Couple notes. You look at new coaches. Of course, Bielema returns to the Big Ten. He was previously at Wisconsin. He's now in their first year. You have new DCs in the Big Ten West with Northwestern with O'Neill. Their longtime DC of 25 plus years just retired, and Brad Lambert over at Purdue. New coordinators in the Big Ten East. Maryland, Dan Enos comes to Loxley. I'm a Dan Enos fan as an OC, not as a head coach. I think Maryland's offense is going to be dynamic this year with the young, I'll let my friends say it next, the young Tua at quarterback, 2 awesome wide receivers. And Urich, the new OC at Penn State. 4th or 5th straight year Penn State has a new OC. That has me down a bit. And then when I look at numbers that jumped out to me last year, this Wisconsin team was only 3-3 in the Big Ten, but they were plus 95 yards per game, a big number. And Michigan State, I agree with Dave. Although they were 2-5 and minus 66 yards per game, the minus 9 turnovers really hurt them. First-year head coach coming to a brand new system, the latest hire, with the Michigan State coaching issues. I have them as the biggest question marks. So Michigan State, Illinois, the biggest question marks I have. To me, it's Ohio State and Wisconsin. I would not bet Wisconsin to win the Big Ten. I would take them to win the win the West. And I'm not afraid to lay the money with Wisconsin in the Big Ten West. When I have their schedule broken down from the guide, and you look at Wisconsin's schedule, it really is like an Ohio State or Alabama schedule. Wisconsin opens with Penn State. I have them as a 4-point favorite. They're in Notre Dame after a bye. I have them as a 2.5-point favorite. And every other game on the schedule, I have them a touchdown or more favorite. So it's going to be Wisconsin and Ohio State for the Big Ten title in my mind.
There you go. You heard here first. Wisconsin there. You see in the win total. How about it, Mejia? Anything to add there in the Big Ten? Anybody you like? Any surprises?
So for Ralph, it's Talia Tagovailoa, and he was brutal. Do you remember how brutal he was in his debut? And then all of a sudden, he looked like he knew what he was doing. So that's a mixed bag there. Mike Yurcich, Joe, who you know from Oklahoma State days, he was the offensive coordinator there for, I believe, 5 years. Then he went to Ohio State. He spent last season at Texas. He's the new OC at Penn State. So eager to see what he can do with Sean Clifford, because Clifford is spotty. I am not as big on Wisconsin in the Big Ten West. Now, granted, they should be the favorite, but they lost their top left tackle, Van Lanen, who's now a Packer. They have that Notre Dame game in Chicago. I'm not high on Notre Dame, but could it be a Jack Cohen revenge game? And then we've got the lid lifter at Penn State. Not necessarily a gimme. They'll be favored at home in a lot of games. I think they probably do edge out the likes of Minnesota and Iowa in the Big Ten West, but I don't think they cover a lot of spreads. I'm not a huge Graham Mertz fan. He's got to prove it to me. Highest rated recruit in quarterback recruit in Wisconsin history, and again, we haven't seen it. I'm eager to see what these Ohio State kids can do. The quarterback won the job, obviously, but the running back that they have, Travion Henderson, everybody's raving about him. He'll step in next to Master Teague. Again, the QB CJ Stroud is somebody that they've been raving about, but need to see it with quarterbacks because the hype machine is huge at all times. And a team that I'm looking at is Minnesota, because nobody's talking about Minnesota. They've got Niles Pinckney, the Clemson transfer, as their new defensive tackle to be kind of the anchor of that line, and 10 returning starters back. So it could be a decent defense. They bring back Tanner Morgan. They bring back Muhammad Ibrahim. They lost Rashad Bateman to the NFL, but Chris Altman-Bell, the other wide receiver, escaped a knee injury that they thought might keep him out for the remainder of the season. Instead, he'll be week to week. So hopefully he will be back down the stretch, because that's where most of their tough games are, besides them opening at Ohio State, which will probably be an L. But I think Minnesota will be a team that will be better down the stretch than they are to start the season. Michigan, again, I don't know who's going to win the job between the Texas Tech transfer Alan Bowman and the incumbent that they have there. Harbaugh, I think, will decide that. But I'm looking at that team being a 500 squad. Indiana, next factor as well. If Penix can stay healthy, he's probably the most prolific quarterback in the conference. I see better years coming for Rutgers and Illinois. I think they'll respond to Bielema and maybe beat Nebraska right out of the gate.
Well, it won't take too long there to figure that one out. The Pac-12, a little different story, though. UCLA in action here in just a couple of days. Dave, coming to you here, my friend. Talk to me about the Pac-12.
We'll go back to the alphabetical rundown here and start with the last being first. Arizona, they're terrible. They're starting from scratch. Sumlin was an awful hire, which most of us agreed upon when he got the job, and he chiseled them right into the ground. Everything's new for Arizona. They'll be lucky if they win a game in conference play this year. Arizona State, offensive line, really good. Strong defense. The secondary looks really good. Herman Edwards has done it. If someone was a horrible hire at Arizona, Herman Edwards was a great hire at Arizona State. This program's in good shape right now. California, as usual, solid defense. I don't know about the offense. They're just going to have to create ways to score points. I think they'll have trouble winning games because of that. Colorado, quarterback spot looks weak. They're okay defensively, but I think Colorado's going to have trouble scoring points. I think this could be a rough year for the Buffaloes. Oregon, one of the contenders in the conference, no question about that. Top 20 defense. The Ducks have always been known for offense, but this is a good defensive team, and I like the offensive line. Oregon State, quarterback spot is very questionable. I don't like their skill position guys. I think that's going to limit them for the most part. USC, I'm big on Slovis. I think the guy's a terrific player. I'm not sure about his receiving core, but USC should be a good club, and hopefully the coaching staff only cost them maybe one game over the course of the season rather than the usual 2 or 3. Stanford, quarterback position looks to be somewhat stagnant at this point. Middle of the pack team at best. UCLA, too much reliance on the quarterback. If he goes down, they've got no shot. I think UCLA is going to be a good team, but I don't know that they'll be real good. Utah could make some noise. Let's see how Brewer does in this offense. I think it might be tailor-made for his skills, and Utah could have a very good year because they're strong in the trenches. Washington, I have as the best team in the conference, even though the quarterback position might not be their strength. But, boy, they're loaded every place else, especially in the trenches. I love teams that are strong up front on both offense and defense, and Washington, to me, is the class of the Big 12 as far as that goes. Washington State, defensive line, I don't know. Defensive backs, I don't know. I think Washington State's going to struggle defensively, and I think that's going to lose them a lot of games. Rolovich was great at Hawaii. I'm not sure he's a good fit at Washington State. I've got Washington winning the conference.
Ooh, all right. Likes Washington to win the conference. Ralph, Pac-12, where are you going?
I'm going Utah to win the conference. I think I'm taking a little bit of a long shot there. I'm not one to bet national championship titles, but Utah would be my long shot if I was playing one. You look at the returning starters in the Pac-12, they are the most compact. The top two teams with Arizona State and UCLA have 20. The fewest teams, Arizona and Stanford, have 15. My power ratings, I do have Oregon, the number one team, followed by USC. At the bottom, Arizona from top to bottom. I have a 24-point difference. You break down the new coaches. Of course, Arizona has a new coach with Jed Fish with a new OC and DC. The only two new coordinators, Dave talked about the Ducks defense this year. Tim DeRuyter is the new DC there. We'll see how he turns that Duck defense into a potent force. And, of course, Colorado has Chris Wilson as a new DC. You know, when I look at recruiting, Oregon this year, number 7 in recruiting across the country, number 6 in recruiting, USC number 7, Washington down, and Utah 36 and 37. So a little bit of drop between those two games. When I broke down the schedule and looked at who I really wanted to pick, I don't know who the hell makes the Pac-12 schedule, but I was talking to someone and I was giving my points on why I like Utah to win the conference, and especially the South. And the guy says to me, well, Utah has to go to USC. Well, you look at that Utah schedule on October the 9th when they travel to USC. They're off a bye. They're off a home game against Washington State. They'll be a big favorite. They're off a bye, and then they play their second Pac-12 game against USC. USC on October 9th will be playing their 5th straight Pac-12 game. That's right. They play 5 Pac-12 games the first 6 weeks of the season, and the week before at Colorado. So although Utah goes to USC, I think it's a great scheduling spot off a die, catching USC on their 6th straight game, 5th straight Pac-12 game, and off a road game at Colorado. My Utah to win, Utah over season win total, Brewer, if you want to take 101 shot to win the Heisman, and Utah to win the national championship. Again, I'm splitting maybe 1.5 units on all 4 of those bets, but I do have a lot riding on the Utah Utes.
All right, well, there you go. Talk to me, Tony Mejia. We got the Utes. We got Washington. What say you?
Well, let's plug the Wager Talk news feed, because we've got all the conferences have in-depth previews. My sleeper to watch, hey, Ralph Michaels, it's the Utah Utes. So we're in total agreement. TJ Pledger coming in at running back and Brewer at quarterback. That's going to be a solid thing because they got 99 returning starts on the offensive line, and the defense returns 9 starters, and they added Washington safety Brandon McKinney. So they should be solid. I'm in agreement. Their schedule outside of USC, they'll be favored in all those games. Plus 600 to win the Pac-12 at FanDuel, just plus 250 to win the South Division. So they're not really that big a long shot. USC and Arizona State co-favorites there at plus 200. I'll flip-flop with Dave as far as Washington and Oregon. I like Oregon over the Huskies, but both of them have essentially the same resumes coming in, loaded on both fronts. Oregon has probably the top defensive player in the country in the defensive end, Kayvon Thibodeau. And the Ducks have an issue at quarterback the same way that the Huskies do. Ducks are trying to decide between a freshman in Ty Thompson, who's really mobile from what they say, and then Anthony Brown, the Boston College transfer, loads of experience. He might win the gig just early, but I expect Thompson to be the guy there. Washington's deciding between Colorado State's Patrick O'Brien. He didn't do much for me when I saw him. Freshman legacy Sam Heward. He's one of the Heward's kids. I think Brock is his uncle. So, and then Dylan Morris, the incumbent. He didn't do much for me either. But again, in the trenches, they're going to be loaded. I expect to see Washington and Oregon duking it out for the Pac-12 North Division title, and they play on November 6th in Seattle. So that'll be interesting to see. But Oregon's won 5 of the last 6 matchups in Seattle, part of a 14-2 run against the Huskies. So they kind of owned them there. And that's my team to watch. Utah I like, and then let's not sleep on Slovis, because I'm in agreement. He's the best player in the conference, a quarterback I'm expecting to hear his name called in the first round come April in the draft.
All right, there you go, guys. ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12 review. Don't forget, of course, you've got the college football preview there by visiting Ralph's page. Free download there as we get ready. Tony Mejia and Dave Cokin ready to go here this college football season. It's just right around the corner, so make sure you visit all 3 gentlemen here now, today. Do it. Head over to WagerTalk.com and then hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner as College Football Daily will return again tomorrow, heading into the weekend. And, of course, we'll start fresh next week, getting ready for week 1 of the college football season. On behalf of Ralph Michaels, Tony Mejia, and Dave Cokin, guys,